Hey, guess what? You don't need waves. You don't need a separate room running a dedicated mixer to get a great broadcast audio mix. I want to show you how we continue to use the old trusty X32 for our live stream broadcast audio mix. I'm going to share with you some of the tips and tricks that we throw into this thing so that our unmonitored, unmanned broadcast audio mix turns out great week in and week out. I'll walk you through our bus and matrix setups, our full effects sends, and then some of the extras that we do to bring in some audience mics and some mastering levels to our final send before it hits broadcast. So why don't we listen to a few examples of our services that we've been able to put together with our X32 here. Free scene file in the description if it's something you like, and maybe you just want to dive a little deeper to see all of our gates and compression and all the things on each channel strip setting. Listen to this.
Hear your people sing, holy to the King of Kings. Holy, you will always be. Holy, holy forever.
Letting the rocks cry without joining the chorus. There aren't enough notes to make the harmony. It's the song of the angels through all of the ages. It's all of the earth that heaven symphony.
There's freedom and life anywhere you reign. Jesus, we bow only to you. We're laying down all of our crowns. The King is in the room. The King is in the room.
Not too shabby, right? Okay, let's dive into the board. Here's a brief overview of how we have the X32 set up. Obviously, all of our channels come in, instruments, microphones on 1 through 32. But then the magic happens whenever we create a post-fader stereo bus mix. What we're actually doing is each channel is assigned to our 11 and 12 stream bus, and then it is combined with a pre-fader drum mix bus into our broadcast matrix. So whenever we're wanting to mix everything for the live stream, what we do is we go into our 11 and 12, we select it, and then we hit sends on fader. And now this mix is an independent starting point of our live stream. So it's still dependent on our front of house audio mixer and how he mixes things, but with that post fader bus mix, we can set independent levels to begin with. So if you want to see the difference here, this is the mix that's going to the house currently, but this is the mix that's being sent to the live stream bus. And as you can see, we've bumped our pastor mic, our host mics up a lot, like 6 dB on the channel for the first stage going into the live stream. But if this operator doesn't have the pastor mic up, it's not going to go through the live stream at all. So that is how you set an independent mix using your sends on fader based on your post fader mix. And if that's a little over your head and you just need to know how to create that first bus post fader mix, I'm going to link to my friends over at Collaborate Worship. They've got a full course called X32 Mix Mastery that walks you through a lot of the nitty-gritty stuff of setting up your soundboard. Now, one of the changes we made was having our drum bus be a pre-fader mix, because I actually don't want everything that's happening here in the room to be affecting my stream mix. I found that my operators, some guys like a little more snare than others, and what we've done is we've just created our own pre-fader mix, because you can see that here is what's going to the house, but here's what's going into the live stream. And I found that, especially with live drums, this can be really beneficial, because with live cymbals and live snare, a lot of times that's coming down in the house a lot, and that can affect your stream mix. We are running electronic drums here, so it's not as big a deal in here. But just know if that's something you're kind of battling with, is getting that consistent drum sound on your live stream mix, you might think about doing a pre-fader mix for those drums and then summing it together with the rest of your live stream mix. A couple of other key things with our live stream mix is that when you go to sends on fader here, you can see these two mics right here are crowd left and our crowd right. And these are only being brought in on the live stream, which means that these are not going to our stereo bus output here. Both the crowd left and the crowd right. They're obviously not going in there, but they are going to our in-ear mix in our P16s. Another benefit of doing this is that whenever you select your stream mix and you hit your sends on fader and go to your effects levels, you can see I've actually got my reverb bumped up a little bit higher than where it is normally. So normally it's down here for our in the house mix, but for the live stream, I want to be able to set those effects levels a little bit hotter to just fill up that space, give a little bit more roominess to the sound without having to pump those crowd mics. So a good blend of crowd mic and reverb makes for a more live feel of the live stream mix. And I know a lot of people will just use the main mix out of your console and add some audience mics to that. Let me just show you what the difference is of all of the things that we're doing to treat our live stream mix versus just sending out the main feed. This is what the main feed sounds like out of our left right.
Light brings light, where it starts to breathe.
And now let me show you if we solo out the broadcast instead of the main mix, what it sounds like. And then I'll just A/B back and forth.
Light brings light, where it starts to breathe. Light brings light, where it starts to breathe. And you are the one who commanded. 'Cause you are the Holy One, and you are God's own Son.
Since we are doing stereo here on the desk for our live stream mix, let me just make sure and show you how you can pan things around in the stereo field between 11 and 12. When you utilize the pan knob, this is panning between your stereo output to your front of house. And that is not going to affect your stereo imaging for your live stream. And so if we go into a channel that is already stereo linked, like my stereo electric guitars, and then we go over to sends, you can see that the left side of electric is panned to the left side of our stream mix, stream bus 11 and 12 that we've set up. If I go to the other right side, it's panned to the right. But if we go to a mono channel, our other like strings input, you can see that it is panned just a little bit between 11 and 12. And it is not panned in the house at all. So what we are doing here is you're utilizing in the sends tab, you scroll between, you come over to 11 and 12, and you can have your panning now between these two channels. So that's how you're actually defining where things sit in the stereo field for your stream mix. You pan between bus 11 and bus 12 in our setup, because that's what we set up as our post fader stereo mix. All right, coming into our effects section here, if we start on our left side, banks 1 through 4, these are what we utilize mainly for our house sounds. So our number 1 is our reverb that we're utilizing for vocals, and it is a vintage room reverb. I much prefer this over like a plate, and obviously you can steal these settings. This is what we like, but our operator is then utilizing one of the knobs down here in the assign section to control how much reverb is happening. Our second effect there is another reverb that is only utilized for our drums. And so this is just set and forget. No one is ever messing with this. There's no on the desk easy way to access this besides dialing into the aux layer. So that is just for our drums. Number 3 is nothing. It's a stereo pitch effect that's for some reason on there. I don't know why, but it's not doing anything. That's not enabled. And then number 4 is our stereo delay that we utilize for vocals from time to time. We have a tap tempo set up here on the desk on a button on the assign section. And then getting into some of the other compressions that we utilize, if I go down to number 8, we have a leisure comp that whenever I'm singing on my yellow mic, this is just knocking off just a couple of dB in conjunction with the compressor on that channel as well. So I like the leisure comp for that. And then we have a dual leisure comp that will throw on our other 2 vocalists, the white and the blue mic, the female, and it's doing the same thing, just knocking off some gain and then adding it back here. And you're just setting that threshold where it makes sense to knock off just a couple of dB when they're really getting into it. So that way you can make up that gain and just have a little smoother section of audio there from each vocalist, so you're not having to worry about writing faders as much. All right, now let's listen to how these 2 effects, 5 and 7, are really changing the sound of what you hear going out on broadcast. So if I go down to our stereo enhancer and I'll uninsert it, and we can listen for just a minute, and then I'll punch it back in, and you can kind of hear how it widens out the sound and brings some life to the mix.
Light brings life, earth starts to breathe, and you are the one who commanded. 'Cause you are the Holy One, and you are God's own Son.
So these are our settings for that stereo enhancer, and just trying to spread things a little bit, but not too much to make it crazy. And I think it really does bring a little extra life to the stream mix that helps with the overall sound. The other layer that we're throwing on the final kind of spot is our Effects 5, which is the precision limiter. So if I go up to our precision limiter and I'll do the same thing, I'll uninsert it for now.
Light brings life, earth starts to breathe, and you are the one who commanded. 'Cause you are the Holy One, and you are God's own Son.
So you can see here all of our settings. I'm just trying to knock about another 3 dB of gain out here. And then we have our output gain at -1. So this is really a brick wall limiter. And I've really just stolen settings from different guys that I found online and tried different things to see what works here. You're trying to get your final level up loud enough to have YouTube and Facebook and everybody online not having to push the volume of their TVs or phones. And so they say that's -14 LUFS. For us, we've found that if our broadcast matrix is like near clipping, then it works well going into our ATEM Constellation HD. So, and then that goes to our Web Presenter HD that hits the stream. But that's kind of where we're living with the precision limiter. And I think it's a powerful tool, but you can also be a little too aggressive with it and start really pumping your mix. And so try not to do that. Now let me show you another trick that we're utilizing for our unmanned mix for the live stream, utilizing some special compression side chaining of our audience mics. So if I go into my audience mics here and I just select the crowd left and then I go into my dynamics section, you can see that on layer 2, our key source here is bus 9. Well, what is bus 9? That is our drums. And so it's keying off of the drums to compress the signal down about 15 dB or so. So that way the crowd mics are not in whenever the drums are in. But when those drums die out, then that opens up and stops compressing the signal. And so now the audience mics come up to the level of what we want them to be for singing. So let me go to a different part in the service here and you'll kind of see and hear how this works.
Come on with your hearts surrendered and your hands raised to a holy God. Sing it out, Central. Come on, let me hear you. So I surrender all, and I surrender all to thee, my
So did you hear how those audience mics came up? And when those drums stopped, they smoothly came up. You didn't really hear it happen.
I surrender.
So I love utilizing that trick, and a couple of keys that I would talk to you about here is the hold and release times. To make sure these are really long, we found these to be the smoothest results of having the audience mics come in and come out as the drums play. Okay guys, I hope that this was helpful for you, especially if you're like me and you're just on the old trusty X32. You don't have waves, you don't have a separate room yet to mix your broadcast audio in. All those things are great, but you can still get a great mix even without somebody monitoring it. Now, if you don't have a good system, if you don't have a good operator doing your house mix, then that's maybe when a DAW or an external mixer would be really helpful. So you're not having to like make up for really horrible EQ tricks you're doing to solve for your room, or you just have somebody that mixes not the way that you would hope it would translate for online. Then maybe that is a better solution. But if you've got a solid front of house guy and you got a solid system, there's no reason you can't do it this way. Let me know if you have any questions. And like I said, free scene file in the description, and also a link to my buddies over at Collaborate Worship who have a full course on utilizing an X32 in worship. All right, remember guys, at the end of the day, we can do a lot of great things. Let's do it all for God's glory. We'll see you in the next one.